Welcome to another Telltale Books video. I'm Greg, and I'm here to talk about the next in my Homer Eon Flint series, The Man in the Moon. We are Telltale Books, bringing you the best in literature, literary topics, and graphic design and bookmaking.
If you want to support us, you can find us on Etsy and Pango, where you can find gently used, rare, and even top quality used books.
And if you like this video, be sure to hit the like button, the subscribe button, and maybe even that bell to be notified when new videos go live.
Thanks for joining us.
Man in the Moon is a science fiction story. It's about a brilliant inventor who invents a number of things, a number of just very far out science things to first manipulate the moon into a position around Earth, closer to Earth, so that the tides are stronger, which hurts the shorelines, but creates a lot more hydro energy that can be tapped into, releasing us from our dependence on fossil fuels, and we can get all of our world's energy strictly out of hydropower, the motion of those super strong tides, creating enough energy that we can tap it and serve the whole world's electrical needs. And the second thing he does is he puts it in a position around the Earth where it's always visible every night as a full moon for everyone. When the Earth rotates around away from the sun, the moon is on that side of the Earth, and so you see it as a full moon, and it's larger, so it's a more romantic moon. And then he goes and lives on the moon, builds his own little place, and he does it with a technology that requires a specific element that is rather rare on Earth, and he's been using it to manipulate the moon, and then he uses it to go to the moon, and ultimately uses it to build his place on the moon. And then the world's supply of this material is exhausted, so nobody can ever go to the moon except him. He's stuck there, and he's got everything he needs to live his life, and nobody's going to bother him anymore. That's the whole story. Sorry, spoilers. But frankly, I don't think this is one I'm going to recommend anyway. It is the first of a series. This is just a short story. It was followed up by a whole novel, which I'll get to probably in a few months. This was published in All Story Weekly for October 4th, 1919. It's number 6 in my bibliography of Homer Eon Flint, and number 1 in Man in the Moon series. And the reason, the last Homer Eon Flint story I did, The Queen of Life, he did some things with gender that, even though the story was kind of ham-fisted, he did some things with gender towards the end that were very contemporary as far as the kinds of thinking and gender politics we see today, mainly from the liberal side of politics, which is a lot of people in publishing. So you do see a lot of stories kind of like it. And so it seems very, very extremely progressive for 1919. And his very next story, he writes The Man in the Moon, which can only be described as completely misogynistic. Like a complete 180 from the attitudes of the Queen of Life. And the story, it's a very much a pulp science fiction story, the kind of Dashwall stuff that you had in the 1930s, where somebody's got a problem and some scientist snaps his fingers, rushes into his lab, and 5 minutes later comes out with this complicated thing using this never before discovered ray that just completely 100% solves the problem without creating any other problems or pollution or anything dangerous for human beings. That's just the way 1930s science fiction was, and Homer Eon Flint seems to be the one who started it. This particular story has all this totally whacked out science, crazy ideas. And I love these crazy ideas of these old science fiction stories, which is what I love these old pulp stories for, this impossible science that they did. I find that fascinating. But the stories suffer from being too focused on coming up with as many wild ideas as you possibly can cram into a 10-page story, and not enough attention to practical matters of writing, characterization, plot, making sure things flow nice and smooth. That all kind of goes out the window with stories like this, and that's why most people criticize early science fiction, classic science fiction, is because it tends to be too much idea, not enough nuts and bolts writing quality. But that's not entirely true. There are a lot of great stories that were written back then. It's just The Man in the Moon by Homer Eon Flint isn't one of them. So I can't recommend it, which is problematical because I've got a whole novel coming up that is the sequel to this that I'm going to be reading and reporting on. But who knows? The novel may be really, really awesome. Maybe with an extended format and some time to think it over. Maybe he came back and did something very cool. So let's give it a chance. Let's give it a try. Come on back and see that. Of course, if you have read Homer Eon Flint's The Man in the Moon, I want your comments in the comments section for everybody. And come on back. Trying to remember, I don't think the sequel to this story is the next by Homer Eon Flint, but I don't have it in my notes what the next one is. Yeah, the next Homer Eon Flint story is titled The Greater Miracle, and that has nothing to do with this story. Let's hope Flint gets better, because of the three I'm exploring here, Austin Hall, Homer Eon Flint, and Francis Stevens, Flint is the weakest writer, but he's got some cool ideas. So I don't write him off yet. And come on back for everything we do here on Telltale Books, and you'll be seeing me here talking whether you do it or not.